put on this computer.
That's great.
It's fine. All right. I think we are up and running. It says recording. So welcome everybody. Today we are doing a showcase of Tom Stodulka's business and fabulous book. This is actually the first in the series of his books. He's releasing a new book very shortly, but this beautiful little book is called Storm Clouds and Silver Linings, My Journey. And the new book, and you can talk about that in a minute, but welcome to showcase your business on the Spiritual Events Directory, Tom.
That's pretty fantastic. Thanks. What a wonderful thing to be invited to do.
Yeah.
And participate with a special person like you, Pip, who I've got to know over the last year in relation to your great book.
Yeah.
And your time at sea. And funnily enough, we both had times at sea.
Yes.
I was in the Navy for 20 years, so even as a legal officer, I had opportunities going out to sea. And my first poem, in fact, was written when I was on board a ship between Suva, Vila, Mackay and Townsville, HMAS Duchess, even having an open bridge, which was pretty unusual.
Yeah.
So you'd really get the impact of those Pacific storms and really quite wonderful.
Fantastic.
So that's where it started. My poetry writing started in 1976, and then I must have had writer's gap, writer's block, and didn't write for another 30 years.
Wow, that's quite a block. That's amazing. So is that first poem in here, or are you just saying?
It is.
It is.
No,
the
first poem's in here, in the old book.
Yes.
And it's on page 8 of the old book, The World and the Future Post the Vietnam War, the Meanderings of a Young Man. Poem written at sea on board HMAS Duchess, 25th of May, 1976.
Fantastic. That's great. Would you like to read it?
Well, it's a bit sad, actually. It's a bit depressing about, new nations following in some of the footsteps of the old nations, sort of repeating the mistakes that the old developed nations had made. And we see that now, I guess, in the Pacific, managing the environment and coping with a whole range of social issues. And that's a whole topic for another video.
Another time.
Another time.
So you've obviously, 30 years, that's quite a break to take in terms of your creative process, and you've had quite a journey getting to this point now. So I wanted to ask you, there was 3 things I wanted to ask you. One was, how did you get to the point of actually creating your book, your first book, and now you've got a second book coming out? And the second question was, why? Why did you decide to do a book? So perhaps we should start with question number 1, which is, how did you get to the point of writing the first book? How was that? How did that come about?
And I think that's such a good question, because sometimes you can just stumble into situations in life by being open to new things happening in your life. And I came across a little bookshop in Buderim in the Sunshine Coast, where I live now for most of the time.
Yeah.
And a lady there was running a bookshop called Autumn Leaves. Her name's Linda Henderson. Unfortunately, a few years later, she closed the book down, but I started going to some of her lessons, her teachings. We had, 1-hour sessions, and it was all about just building up confidence, I guess. Although at that stage I had already completed most of the poems that went into Storm Clouds and Silver Linings, but I just didn't really think I'll ever do anything with them except let them gather dust on a bookshelf somewhere.
Yep.
And then Linda had the amazing capacity to encourage me to actually put the poems into print.
Yep.
And she was connected with Ocean Reef Publishing.
Right.
Linda's a New Zealander, Ocean's a New Zealander. With a name like Ocean, I guess you could imagine he may have some New Zealand connections.
Sure.
And Ocean took me, like Linda, they all took me under their wing.
Yep.
And if you like, the rest is history. And I've met so many fantastic writers and other creatives through that exposure, through that experience, through Linda and then through Ocean Reeve and his great assistant, Jason Smith.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the book that you created, obviously, it's a nice little. I was just saying, it's a great pocket-sized book that you can just put in your purse and just open it up and go, this is what my inspiration is for today. A little bit like our lovely friend Jen Compton, who's got a beautiful poetry book as well, where you can open it up and get your inspiration for the day. So how did you decide on these? You know, you've put together a selection of poems that you wrote yourself, and then you've also, just as a little bit of an interesting thing, you've also got in here beautiful paintings. There, I don't know if you can see how it's a gorgeous landscape, but that were done by your father.
And that takes me to another whole story,
Yes.
which again, we'd need hours rather than just a few minutes that we've got. I always wanted to produce a book of my father's works. I used to help selling his works in Sydney and Canberra and took paintings with me all around Australia, promoting his work. He was an Australian artist from Eastern Europe, from Czechoslovakia, arriving here as a refugee with my mum in 1949. My brother had been born in the refugee camp in Naples, the UN camp, and I was born in the Bathurst camp, far more benign, I must say, than the United Nations camp in Italy.
Sure.
And coming to Australia was, if you like, in comparison, coming into the land of plenty, the land of milk and honey.
Absolutely.
In comparison, especially after living in war-torn Europe and being smuggled out of Czechoslovakia. Anyway, Dad had been an artist as a young man in Europe and continued to be an artist even in the refugee camp in Naples extraordinarily, and was able to paint some watercolours to just keep my family alive.
Yeah.
And again, there's so many stories around coming out by sea. Always the sea, this maritime connection on the General Black, which was a troop carrier, an American troop carrier that was carrying the refugees, a lot of refugees from Naples to Australia. And as I said before, I was born then in the refugee camp in Bathurst in 1951, but Dad continued painting and was given the opportunity by the Good Neighbour Council of Australia to promote Eastern European art in Sydney, Melbourne and Canberra.
Wow,
so
that's so fantastic.
He was travelling, promoting some of the Eastern European art and some of his own art, and travelled while we were in the refugee camp in Bathurst, where I started off, if you like, or where the family started off.
How did you choose these? I mean, it's only a small book and you've only chosen like 3 or 4, but how did you choose those particular pictures? Because obviously with
they're a cross-section of Dad's work of wildflowers and Australian landscapes.
Lovely.
Amazing, and Parramatta scenes. We grew up in Parramatta. We were there for about 25 years, and very many subjects all around the Parramatta area, Lake Parramatta and the Hills District and the historic George Street and Church Street in Parramatta. Those buildings are still there to this day. but
Yeah.
now surrounded by, 20, 30-story high-rises. Parramatta's become a major city in its own right, but when we were growing up there, it was a very minor, small centre. And anyway, I went to school there, and then, growing up in some of that area that Dad's depicted in art
Yes.
for all those years. So, but as you say, there's only a small representation of his paintings in that book.
Yep.
In the second book, I've been able to, Life as a Dance, incorporate about 40 of his quite special artwork.
That's amazing. And we were talking about what we were going to sort of do as our theme today, to have our conversation. And you said that you were really keen to talk about kindness and embracing other people and coming from that perspective of trying to understand where somebody else is coming from. And one of the poems in this book on page 13 is the Ode to Kindness poem. So was that something that you would be willing to read, or would you like me to read it? It's nice if you read it, since you're the author.
Well, I can read this one, and then you read another one.
All right.
An Ode to Kindness, that was written in 2015.
Yeah.
It is like a painting, a portrait or sketch of a special warm smile and the person within, a beaming, kind and gentle smile and spirit, a gift to share and a generous token to warm others' less happy hearts and souls, others who might struggle to shake off their sad and stressed thoughts, others who only feel that life has dealt them a tough hand. That smile traverses all and confronts pain and loss, anger and stress, trials and tribulations. Never lose that smile and that special inner glow.
That's gorgeous.
And there are a lot of people that carry off that smile, which is a wonderful skill or talent, but it comes from the heart.
Yeah.
It's not really a skill and it's not really a talent. It's something that comes from within one's heart and soul, if you like.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting, I was reading Brene Brown's book today called The Gifts of Imperfection. And one of the gifts that she talks about that humans have is the ability to laugh and dance and sing and have that joyfulness in any circumstance. There is always somebody who can find that laughing, dancing, singing, that inner glow. So, and it was really interesting to me that she said that was actually a key gift that human beings have. And it's just a matter of finding that joy or that kindness from within in any situation. And I thought that was interesting, the way that she's done some research, quite a deal of research, 8 years worth of research on the elements of the human imperfections and what we are all about. And I thought that was really cool that you were wanting to talk about kindness and joy today. So, and that's why the next poem that I like is the one about laugh and the world laughs with you, because that's one of my favorite things to do, is to laugh. I would have to say that if you gave me a choice of any of the things that you could possibly do, I would say put me in front of a comedian or tell me a funny story, and you'll make my day. So
you better read that one, Pip.
You want me to read it? Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I think that's lovely that you would like me to read it.
No, definitely. You've summed it up so well, Pip.
All right, let's see whether I do it justice. It is, it's interesting to read someone else's work because, my interpretation of it is going to be my interpretation of it, and especially with poems, it's so interesting. So,
thank you.
Laugh and the World Laughs with You, 24th of June 2016. Keep that grin on your chin and you'll be right, mate. Said to me the other day by an old timer who, passing by, has seen a thing or two in a long life. Keep smiling. I think my dad said that on many of occasions. Laugh and the world laughs with you. Cry and you cry alone. Well, that's an old one. great smile on your dial. In a while, crocodile. Fun, good humour kills the tumour, beats any rumour. Love and laughter, it's the best medicine. Despite the odds, the challenges and the stress, and sometimes the pain, go forward, onwards, and forever upwards. The stars await. I love it.
Well, there are some things there about crying, you cry alone. That was the old, an older way of doing things, I guess, when one was sad, perhaps especially some of the guys. They were too ashamed to cry in front of anybody else.
Sure.
I think as a society, we've been able to move on from that a little bit.
Yes.
And now it's less likely, I hope, that people have to cry alone. They can actually cry together.
It's more
in the same way they can laugh together.
Yes,
and,
exactly. Yeah, that's great. I was talking to my sister tonight, and she said to me that there's a guy at her gym who is a boxing instructor, and he's very, like, you know, full-on kind of boxing instructor, but he really likes to hug people. And she said it's funny that he obviously wants to touch people in a loving way, but he's a boxing instructor. So he's like doing this kind of masculine, or, you know, what is considered a masculine thing, but he then really loves hugging people. And some of the other men find it really confronting to have their boxing instructor hugging them. And so she was talking about how he's clearly reaching out to people, but has this sort of strange, people find him odd. Like she was saying, they find him a bit odd. And I'm like, it's so interesting, because there is this this perception that men are supposed to not do that, not express their emotions in that way. Even in this time, I still think there's some things that are holding us back in that way, cultural things perhaps. And you working in the job that you do as a mediator, you know, you would probably find that a lot in your conversations with families. That, do you find that happens a lot, that the males and the females have difficulty understanding each other in that way?
It's so interesting, isn't it, in the Australian culture to have that sense you've got to be really super tough, and then when you look at other cultures around the world where men actually not only hug but they even kiss.
Yes.
And so it's funny, culture can be so influential, and I think in some ways as a culture in Australia we have, dare I say it, softened.
Yeah.
And I guess no one wants to be accused of softening. You know, softening is almost a critical word, isn't it? But in a way, you know, to see footballers do the big hug thing, and even the tears occasionally from people who are super tough, in fact, ends up being regarded, I think, these days as quite a natural thing and not something to feel ashamed of. So it's funny how, as a world, as a country, we've changed in quite a few ways. With COVID, of course, it's a different world again, and getting too close to anybody at the moment has been really something that's had to take a few steps backwards. But in other ways, COVID has also brought out a lot of humour, you know, a lot of jokes, and so, you know, we're back to that laugh and the world laughs with you sort of thing. Laughing can be very, very healthy to kill the tumour. You look at kids in hospitals, and, you know, they bring a clown in to cheer the kids up, and it seems to be very successful, doesn't it? Makes people happy.
Yeah, for sure. And the thing is too that we really are, strangely, I feel like I'm more connected to people than I was before, because now I'm actually reaching out, and we are, in particular, our little group of mentees that have been writing books with Ocean Reef Publishing have been connecting with each other in a more we weren't even connected before that. We didn't even really talk to each other before that. So now we actually have faces and names and people that we can connect with, and it's really quite interesting to to get to know these people that are on the same journey as you, you know? It's fantastic.
Turning a negative into a positive is in itself a great challenge and can give a lot of pleasure and sense of achievement and success to people when you can look at things more like, you know, a glass half full than a glass half empty.
Definitely.
Which, of course, is one of my things as a mediator.
Yeah.
We're always looking at can we find a good outcome? Can we find a win-win solution?
For sure. So is there any particular poem that's, I know you're going to, you know what I'm going to say. Is there anyone that's your favourite?
Well, I guess many of them are favourites, and I really should look at one from the new book. There's a few in there about hope, rays of hope.
Great, that's a great.
And, you know, when
have you got the
when I think of the need for hope in a world where there's quite a bit of additional stress of late, it seems, and whether it's the fact that the media is able to ensure that we're exposed to more of that, or whether it's you know, you get the sense that there's more conflict and more dramas going on. You look at the Hong Kong situation and situations in different other parts of the world going through pretty tough times. So, you know, whether the media was out there promoting it or letting us know about it or not, I think it really is something very real. This one's just a very short one, so I'm going to crave your indulgence to perhaps read another one, but after this one, but because it's so short. This was written very recently on the 11th of January 2020. This was sort of pre-COVID, but we've been going through all the bushfires and tragedies of the fires. Rays of hope. This same day, the 11th of January 2020, almost midnight and a new day, rays of hope have come our way, emotionally charged. At first, some doubtful drops and then nothing, but with renewed boldness and more long-lasting, the rain is here. Many may reach for a beer, too early perhaps, such a celebration, but hey, it has given hope for so many to cope. Better times ahead. Knock the fires for dead. Enough said, as it is still too soon before we start jumping over the moon. Nevertheless, embrace the rays of hope.
Lovely. And you've said that there was a painting of a bushfire on the front of the new book, is that right?
Yeah. I found a few of Dad's old bushfire paintings on Facebook, and I thought, wow, with this being so topical, and Dad was passionate about the Australian bush and captured bushfires with such a commitment, if you like, an understanding of the intensity of fires and drought and you know, the influence of climate and the weather. So that's on the front cover.
Yeah. Are we allowed to see it, or is it not revealed yet?
Oh, look, absolutely. It's perhaps not as clear as it could be.
Oh, I like the hat. That's cool. Does it go right round to the back of the book as well? Is it sort of the whole back?
Almost. But on the back, I've left room for the promotion of 2 charities.
Okay.
And I've promoted a number of charities with the first book, and I'm continuing to do that.
Yeah.
In addition to some charities, I was also able to raise some money for drought relief and flood relief last year.
Great.
And looking forward to continue that connection with very deserving organisations who help make a difference to people's lives.
Fantastic. So when people purchase the hardcover book, they part of that money is going to charities.
Correct.
And
Great.
what are the two charities that you've chosen for this new book?
One's called St. Lazarus of Jerusalem, and the other one's called Unite Live Aid. UniteLiveAid.org will be holding a concert to help homeless and disadvantaged people all around the world.
Great.
The date of the concert at the moment is the 29th of October 2022.
So it's a bit of a ways away. We should be out of COVID by then.
With everything that's happening, it should be pretty right by October 2022.
I hope so.
And that concert will be taking place at the ANZ Stadium in Sydney.
Great.
With artists from all around the world.
Fantastic.
And the other charity, St. Lazarus of Jerusalem, which has been an international charity in many countries of the world, again, also supporting disadvantaged and homeless people. So that's something as well just to include in our brief get-together today.
That's right. I think it's great. And we obviously, because we're having our chat today about the book, we've got a little bit of a minute to, if you want me to read one more. I found one that I like the look of because I have a bit of an affinity with Willy Wagtails. And I noticed...
Oh, isn't that amazing, Pip? That's great.
You have 3 poems in here about Willy Wagtails, so that's really cool. So I'm just going to pick one to read, but then you can tell us where people can find you. But let's see. Fantastic. Which one. Do you have a favourite?
No, you pick the Willy Wagtail one you like.
Which one do you think I'd like? Okay. I'm going to go with number 2. I don't know why. I just feel like I'm drawn to number 2. So This one says Hendra, Willy Wagtail Hendra. So this is on page 53. If anyone's reading along, they have their book with them. Well, I'm in the new book, not in the new book, in the first book. So 29th of May 2011, Hendra. So it says, Willy Wagtail at the window. You flew north to see me. You flew far, and may I say welcome and thank you for your journey. You hesitated as you danced your wagtail dance. Was it the visit to the city all the way from Byron? No, it seemed to suit you. You looked well and ready for winter. So many months of chilly weather. Probably no big deal for the Willy Wagtail who is used to travel so far. In all types of weather, you dance your dance for us all. See you next time, Mr. Wagtail, as you fly on into the winter sunshine to some new place yet unknown. It's very...
Look, that was great. Isn't it funny how that captures the whole thing about life as a dance?
Yes, I was just thinking that, and I didn't read it before. I've not read these out loud, by the way. I'm just doing this on the fly. But but I noticed that that one of the cool things about your poems is that they're very, you can see, I mean, I'm a visual person anyway, but you can see that Willy Wagtail doing his little dance in the winter sunshine, you know, and that's something that Willy Wagtail, from a spiritual perspective, from a metaphysical perspective, is all about moving forward, about motion. The Willy Wagtail message, if you ever see one from a animal spirit guide perspective, is all about keep moving forward, don't stay still, don't stay still in the moment, like keep moving forward, always keep moving forward. So I always, whenever I see the little Willy Wagtail, I'm always like, yes, I know, I have to keep moving forward, don't get stuck.
Pip, that's really beautifully put. Speaking of the spiritual and some words that really resonate with me, there's a poem in the new book called The 12 of Hearts.
Yeah.
And it's all about serendipity, synchronicity, and spontaneity. Can I just read that one very quickly?
Sure, why not? We'll finish up with that one.
A chance discovery along a city street, and there lying beneath my feet, looking ever so neat, a playing card, the 12 of Hearts. What's that, you say? There is no 12 in a deck of cards. James Redfield would say there is an omen here. Sure, it is not clear. Serendipity, synchronicity, and spontaneity. A chance encounter, like life itself. Is it all that simple? How much of life is determined by fate? Some luck perhaps, an intervention, a challenge or two, the influence of a greater being or external force, God's hand or the hand of the Lord. How can you tell? Does your faith tell you well? Is life a mere game of chance? As you go forward on your merry or unhappy dance, the deck of cards, some extra cards to give you an extra chance. The mystery of life lingers longer into the unknown. Depths of passion, compassion, hopes and despair, for us all to care or dare. Embrace your daily lot. Upwards, soar high above, fill in every dot. Mountains and stars await. Come on board, don't be late. Fly high, up into the sky. Stay connected and committed. Be enthused, never say die. Life is for all to cherish. Help us all to nourish. Nurture and go forth, onwards, upwards, high into the sky. Don't cry, at least only seldom, as you prepare for the kingdom. That's probably not too bad a note to finish, don't you think?
I like it. I like it a lot. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me on Showcase Your Business tonight. And yes, where can we find you if people want to get a hold of that lovely second edition?
Thanks so much, Pip. I do have a website, www.tomstodulkaauthor.com.
Beautiful.
Now, the Stodulka is a bit tricky, Stodulka, tomstodulkaauthor.com. And through Ocean Reef Publishing and Amazon, and there'll be an ebook out not too far down the track as well. That works out for some people.
Fantastic.
More easily than actually getting the book. So, but, you know, can I recommend the hard copy now to have as your little coffee table book?
Absolutely, because this little one is not it's not big enough for my coffee table. I have a giant coffee table, so I need a bigger one. But
well, with those small ones,
yes,
I've often promoted them, saying people need to get one each. You know, a his and hers, or a her and hers, or a his and his, or
right.
however you'd like to come on board with the books.
Love
It's been lovely to work with you today, Pip, and I know you've got a beautiful book. Can you just tell us a little bit about your book before we finish up today?
Sure. I mean, my little book is, it's called Finding My Soul at Sea. And as you mentioned before, it is about working on the oceans, except that you were on a Navy ship. I was working on a cruise ship for 9 different cruise ships over the course of 6 years. And so the spiritual journey that I took in that very non-spiritual place is what my book, Finding My Soul at Sea, is all about. So, yes, and I will be talking about that on another occasion when we come to showcase your business. But thank you so much for joining me today. And I have put the link into our little description of our video, so that people know how to get in touch with you, and they can just click on the link and go and have a look at your website and your beautiful books. And I will thank you again and say good night, and we will talk again, I'm sure. So
fantastic, Pip. It's been great catching up again too. Thank you so much. All the very best.
Thank you.
Talk soon. Bye-bye, Pip. Thank you.